No, 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 no.
Hey YouTube, welcome back to another fantastic episode of Vin Plays Fantasy Football. This is going to be our Week 2 recap here. I just finished watching the Saints Raiders game for Monday Night Football. And the Saints do not look good right now. I don't know if they're missing Michael Thomas, but maybe Drew Brees has finally succumbed to age, because he did not look good. He did not look good during this game. Derek Carr looked pretty much like Derek Carr. He did have a good game though. He got sacked a couple of times early in the game, but he threw I think 3 touchdowns, and he performed significantly better than Drew Brees today. But anyways, coming back to the recap and looking at our matchup this week. We did lose to blue balls here, officially lose to blue balls here now that the Raiders game is over. We ran into the buzzsaw that is Dak Prescott. He had not 61 fantasy points, but he had 41 fantasy points here, 450 passing yards, and look, all those touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns and a passing touchdown. Man, I didn't watch this game, but coming back from that kind of deficit against the Falcons, that's pretty wild. Pretty wild, but I think most people who played against Dak Prescott this week probably lost. We also ran up against Mike Evans, who had a good bounce back game. And then, of course, Baltimore's Justin Tucker and their defense, which really cleaned up Houston, really cleaned their clock, as the kids say. But looking at our side, particularly on Sunday, we jumped out to a pretty quick lead because Raheem Mostert, we started him in our flex, as our running back, and he had another crazy 80-yard touchdown run, or I don't remember if it was a catch or if it was a run, but I think it was a run. So he had a huge run, but then sadly he got injured early in the game. I think within the second quarter is what I read. So he wasn't able to add to that. But also we had Johnny Smith start out with a huge touchdown catch and run of his own, and he had 2 touchdowns in this game as well. So we were looking good to start out the Sunday, to start out the matchup. But then with Dak piling on those points, it was pretty crazy. But actually, you know what? I should address this. My roster might look a little bit different here. I have Aaron Rodgers now on my roster. I ended up making not so much a last minute, but on Friday, I ended up making a trade for Aaron Rodgers. I traded Zach Moss for Aaron Rodgers because we have a ton of running back depth on our squad. And, if you watched my draft video for this league, we drafted a ton of running backs, and with Zach Moss, I figure he does have upside if he does eventually take over that backfield. But we do have a lot of guys that are similar to him, like Anthony Gibson has a lot of upside, and they seem to be giving him more work. He scored a touchdown this week. And I think he ran a bit more than he caught. Oh wow. So he had negative yards on receptions. He's looking more promising. I think as the season goes on, they're going to give him more and more work. But then we had David Montgomery, who also exploded against the Giants, and Chris Carson, which I sadly sat him. My thought process here, as I recall, was I was projected to lose against blue balls, so I tried to start high upside guys. You know, let me just go down the guys that I started. So I traded for Aaron Rodgers because of his matchup. His matchup looked really good against Detroit, and he did super well against Minnesota last week during week 1. So I ended up trading Zach Moss for Aaron Rodgers, and you know, he did okay. 22 points, that's not bad, but it was a little disappointing considering how much he scored last week with a good matchup. The thing is though, Devontae Adams got injured early in that game, so Rodgers was without his number one target, his number one wide receiver in Devontae Adams. And also, Aaron Jones just totally lit up this game. I think Aaron Jones had 40 points as well. He had 3 touchdowns, I believe, and a ton of yardage. He caught passes. He did everything during this game, from what I've read anyways. I didn't actually watch this one. So, yeah, that's already a big hole compared to what Dak did this week. Actually, I probably would have been better off if I didn't make the trade, just for this week, that is. If I didn't make the trade and I would have started Gardner Minshew, which I was kind of leaning towards. Because if you recall, I had Minshew and Jared Goff. And so I ended up dropping Jared Goff when I made the trade for Aaron Rodgers. And I believe I picked up Tony Pollard. Yeah, I think it was Tony Pollard who I picked up. Either Tony Pollard or Mike Gesicki, who also exploded. So Mike Gesicki looks like he might be the real deal now in that Miami, on that Miami team. I'm not exactly sure, but he did get a ton of targets. He 11 targets, 8 receptions, 130 yards, and a touchdown. So we're going to have a bit of a dilemma between who we're going to start for next week with Jonnu Smith and Mike Gesicki. So let's go ahead and go down the line. Robert Woods was reliable as always. He didn't catch too many passes, but he did run in a touchdown. And that's what I kind of like about Robert Woods too. He kind of does a little bit of everything. He catches, and I like how they run him a lot too. They have set plays where, kind of like fake out plays where they fake giving it to a running back, and they ended up just back tossing it to Woods for a run. But yeah, he was, as always, Robert Woods was pretty reliable. Josh Jacobs tonight looked great. He had a little injury scare towards the third quarter where he went into the medical tent, but then he came out relatively quickly. I think he was probably cramping because they showed him getting massage on the sidelines a few times, so I think he was probably having some cramps. But other than that, he did fine. We would have liked him to score a touchdown. He did not score any touchdowns tonight, but 27 rush attempts. You can't get three receptions or three targets and receptions. You can't ask for more when it comes to workload. So I am not disappointed with Josh Jacobs in the slightest. Raheem Mostert did hurt his, I think it was his knee that he hurt. I think they said it was a mild MCL sprain. So I wouldn't be surprised if he misses the next game or the game after that. But before he got hurt, it's like if they started using him, he is starting to look like the real deal to me. Like if he would have finished out this game, if he would have got the same workload as he had last week, it's like, man, he could have easily been like a top 15. Well, I was leaning towards maybe expecting a top 15 performance out of him from week to week. But since he got hurt, we're not sure what's going to go on with that backfield. I also read earlier that Tevin Coleman got hurt during this game as well, and more seriously than Mostert. So they only have, I think, Jerick McKinnon now as their lone running back, or their lone name running back anyways. So we're going to have to see how that plays out, particularly for this coming week. They'll probably sign someone. Devontae Freeman comes to mind, since he's probably the biggest name free agent still out there as far as running backs are concerned anyways. So we'll see what happens there. But we will probably be sitting him next week. But you know, we do have the depth to sit him. It's like I didn't even start. I was stupid enough to sit Chris Carson this week. So we have Chris Carson. We have David Montgomery, who's getting tons of work. So at the very least, he'll put up points for us. If not, you can't expect him to put up 20 points every week, but he will put up points for us. And then of course Johnny Smith. We started Johnny Smith. He was the only reliable tight end that we had, or tight end with a good matchup anyways, because Gesicki against Buffalo, it's really pretty surprising that he was able to do what he did against Buffalo, because they're a good defense. But here I ended up flexing Malcolm Brown because he had a great matchup against Houston. Houston's D is not very good, and but from the highlights and from the things that I've seen about that game, is that game was really well in hand in all fronts. Lamar Jackson really didn't need to do much of anything because they were able to run the ball really super well between all of the running backs, really. Mark Ingram, I almost said Devontae Swift. Gosh, who's the rookie on Baltimore? I forget. But yeah, they just didn't need Malcolm Brown. They didn't need Marquise Brown to do much. And yeah, he caught almost all his passes. He caught 5-6 receptions for 42 yards. But yeah, it was pretty disappointing. Yeah, we expected a bigger game out of Marquise Brown. And then we have our kicker and our defense. I actually, if you recall from my starter video, I did end up spending a couple of FOB on the Los Angeles defense, which did not pan out so well. I actually watched this game, and the Eagles' offensive line held up way better than it did during the last game, probably because Lane Johnson did start this game. So yeah, they looked a lot better. Carson Wentz didn't look great, but their O-line looked significantly better than last time. They did get a few sacks though. They got a few sacks, and did they get an interception? Yeah, they did get 2 interceptions actually, and yeah, I remember a fumble that they did get. But let's look at their next matchup. I believe it was Buffalo. Yeah, their next matchup is against Buffalo. We'll see if we keep them or not, because they do have good matchups coming up against New York. And New York just lost Saquon Barkley too for the year. He tore his ACL, so that's really him. When it comes to injuries this week, it's been a rough week. Tons of people got hurt this week, but we'll see what goes on with yeah, because San Francisco had a ton of injuries too, like Jimmy Garoppolo, Tevin Coleman, Raheem Mostert, and then on defense, Bosa. Bosa is also out for the year because he tore his ACL as well. So yeah, there's tons of injuries this week. But coming back to the Rams defense, I wouldn't be eager to start them next week against Buffalo, but against New York, that'd be a good matchup. I wouldn't mind actually against Washington because yeah, Haskins just hasn't looked great. I actually, depending on whether Garoppolo plays or not, if Garoppolo is still out during week 6 against San Francisco, then I wouldn't mind actually playing. I don't think I'd mind playing them against San Francisco either. Against Chicago, it's not a great matchup, but I wouldn't mind it. And against Miami, that should be a good matchup for them as well. But we'll see who's on the waiver wire. I'm not exactly sure who I'm leaning towards. It's yeah, I think I went through all my guys here. Is anybody on the bench that's worth talking about? No, I don't think so. So let's go ahead and take a peek at the waiver wire real quick. What running backs we have? We don't have. There's not too many. Not too many people left on the waiver wire. Probably because of how deep really, our teams are. Oops, didn't want to do that because I added those extra bench spots and IR spots for, and knock on wood, the plague doesn't affect too much football, and it hasn't yet, anyways. So that's always great. But anyways, as far as pickups, yeah, I'm not exactly sure who I would go for here. I don't think there's too many guys here that I might just stand pat and save my fab. With all the injuries, there are guys that you could pick up for spot starts. Like Christian McCaffrey is out too, so his handcuff. Jerick McKinnon, like we talked about for San Francisco. But yeah, we really don't need any running backs because our running back depth is pretty deep. And as far as wide receivers are concerned, we might have to consider. Actually, let's go back to my team. We might have to consider, because if Devontae Adams is out, he hurt his hamstring early in that game. So there is theories actually on Twitter. There are Twitter theories that are saying that perhaps he tweaked his hamstring early in the game, but the game was so well in hand that they decided that they'll just keep him out for the rest of the game because they didn't really need him to win. They just rest him. So fingers crossed that is the case. So we'll just play him. He'll be fine next week, and we'll play him for week 3. But if not, then who do we want to plug in for him? We could plug in Marquise Brown. Let's see. Yeah, against Kansas City, definitely we could plug in Marquise Brown. What other wide receivers do we have? Just Jarvis Landry. But I'll get more into the waiver wire when I go into my starters. After we go through waivers and I pick up who I pick up, if I pick up anybody. Okay, it looks like Jarvis Landry is against Washington, which might be good. Although Washington's defensive line is really good, at least from that first game that I watched week 1. And Cleveland's O-line isn't great, so I'm not sure if that bodes well for Landry, since Baker will probably be, maybe that may be good for Landry, since Baker will be trying to get rid of the ball super quick. So we'll be tossing it to Landry because Landry is more of the slot guy anyways. But yeah, that pretty much I think that pretty much wraps up week 2 recap, the week 2 recap. Sad that we have been defeated, but there's always next week. It's still very early on in the season, so thanks again for watching Vin Plays Fantasy Football, and I'll see you next time.